Hi, everyone. We are going to start our LLM virtual fair session very soon. We're waiting for everyone who registered to today's event in the next few minutes. We have all of our university representatives here with us, with a couple of exceptions. We will explain about this, but it's going to be a great event. Thank you for joining us. We are currently recording the session, and you will receive a link to watch the session again at your own time, or if you were not able to join us today, then that will be your opportunity to watch. So I'm going to hand over shortly after to one of our university representatives, Right Llm from University of Law, who is going to be hosting the event. I will be monitoring our waiting room so that I can allow entrance to all of the registered participants. If you have any questions after the presentations that you will see, we kindly ask you to type those questions on the chat feature of the browser of the Zoom panel that you have on your screens. We also have the option to go into different breakout rooms with each of the university representatives. So after the presentation, we will give you instructions on how to do that if we will have specific breakout rooms for universities for you to ask more detailed questions. So I think with that, we're going to now start officially our session today. So if I can kindly ask Raj to open his microphone and introduce himself and today's event.
Thank you very much, Melissa. Thanks for the starting the session. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, depending on where you're joining us from today. My name is Right Llm, and I'm the Senior Business Development Manager for the University of Law here in the UK. And once again, thank you very much for joining us today. This is our first virtual event as part of the Global Law Consortium in 2022. There will be a series of there are a series of events planned for this year, so please keep an eye out on our website for the upcoming events. So today's session, we have 12 law schools participating in the event, but unfortunately, 2 of them are not able to attend the session because of various issues. So as usual, we have broken the event into 2 sessions. The first part is going to be our law school representatives will be sharing some valuable insights about the universities and potentially just giving more information about the LLMs in general. And the second part will be we will be taking some quick Q&As after the session, and also you will have the opportunity to meet with each one of us in a breakout session. So that will be another opportunity for you to actually get more specific information about our law schools, and also get some more information about how to apply, because this is a truly global consortium. So we have law schools participating from different countries, and every country and every school might have different entry criteria and different ways of submitting an application. So I really hope, I'm personally very excited, and I really hope you get most of your questions answered, and you go back with all the information that you were seeking for. So without any further delay, I would invite Annette from the University of Leiden, Netherlands, to start the session. Over to you, Annette.
Hi, well, welcome everybody. As Raj said, my name is Annette. I work for Leiden Law School, and I'm going to start with this presentation about, well, everything related to LLM. And one of the most important things is, of course, finding the right LLM. There is so much to choose from. There's just too much. So where do you start? How do you make that decision where to study what? Well, a good starting point before you dig into the world of LLM programs is to consider who are you and what would you like to get out of doing an LLM? Is it because you want to prepare for an international career? Would you like to lift your earning potential, so create a better CV? Would you like to use it as a stepping stone towards a PhD program, for example? Or would you like to get access to the legal profession in a certain country, or maybe even get access to the bar? But also, maybe you're a lawyer and maybe you would like to specialize in a certain area, or maybe your employer has asked you to do so. So that could be another reason. And sometimes if you have a non-law background, it's also possible to do an LLM. For example, for economists or other related programs or fields of study, sometimes it is possible to do an LLM. And of course, it is very well thinkable that, for example, a manager or an economist could do with some legal knowledge in his job. So that could be another reason. Or maybe you would like to hone your legal English skills to set up an international network. So there are really various reasons you can think of that will help you down in narrowing your choice. It might also be good to talk to alumni from certain programs with regards to career prospects, and maybe see how employers value certain programs, or talk to students. For example, UniBuddy, I think many universities use this kind of program. You talk to students and you get to hear the information firsthand. So I think that would be a great start. And now I'd like to give the floor to Ezra from Koch University. Ezra.
Ezra, you need to unmute.
You're muted.
Hi everyone. Can you hear me now? Sorry. I think it is on, right? Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you, Annette, for your insightful presentation, and thanks everyone for joining us today. I'm Ezra from Koch University Law School, and I'll take this from here to another important criteria to help you understand which LLM program fits your needs. The first one is your future career expectations. In order to find the right LLM program, you should consider how it will contribute to your current career profile or the one you would like to develop in the future. You might have professional experience, as Annette said, in a specific area and wish to understand a comparative approach in a different jurisdiction. You might have a dream of working in a certain country, and having an LLM studying in that country definitely help you grow your network, understand their work culture, give the opportunity to develop yourself, realize challenges and needs in their legal practice. You can also look into career opportunities offered by law schools. So law schools that are offering LLM programs should be very strong on providing career consultations as well. You should ask yourself, do they offer career consultations? Do they offer mock interviews for their students? Career portals or events that help their students find internships or jobs? And after graduation, after completing your LLM, will you be able to obtain a visa in that country? You should ask all these questions to determine your destination before you apply for an LLM. Some LLM programs also offer, especially in the US and UK, preparation modules for professional exams like bar examinations. They prepare their students for that. Or some programs have specific accreditation that could improve your career prospects, which is a very important point. These are points that they can help you find your LLM program according to your professional expectations in the future. But there is another big criteria, and which is, I think, very important one that narrow down your search is your budget. So my friends soon will talk about scholarship opportunities and financial aid, but I would like to give this opportunity as well. But just it is how much you can spend, like how much you have, how you can afford your LLM program in a different country. So it's not only tuition fee, it's also the living expenses you need to think about. Some countries have specific scholarship schemes, and some schools have tuition waivers on academic merit. Like Koch University, we offer some tuition waivers, some amounts of tuition waivers. So you should look for these opportunities before you apply for a program. But at the end of the day, there are also a lot of expenses moving into a country, also covering your personal expenses. So you should think about that. So these are the topics that I would like to focus on that help you identify your destination and your right LLM in a different country. But if you want to hear more about scholarship opportunities or destination, finding the right destination for your LLM, we'll be here after the session and answer your detailed questions. Now I pass the word to my colleague Joanne from the University of British Columbia. Thank you.
Thank you, Ezra. Good morning, everyone from Vancouver, Canada. In terms of the format of the LLM that you're choosing, you have to consider, are you going to be working alongside of doing studies? Is that LLM program, is there an option to do part-time or maybe some of the courses online? In terms of topic, again, as Annette and Ezra have alluded to, it all depends on what your ultimate career path is. Are you looking at doing an LLM to support the work that you're already doing? Or are you looking at doing a research LLM to do intensive research on a specific topic, perhaps to go into a PhD program? If you're looking at a research-based LLM, then you have to look at the institution and what the institution can offer to you. Do they have faculty members who are experts in the area that you're looking at doing research in? And are those faculty members well-known researchers in that area? In terms of if you're going into a professional LLM to, let's say, specialize in a specific area, such as an LLM in tax, again, what are the types of courses that they offer? Do they offer do they bring in experts to teach those courses who are leading experts in the field, perhaps ideally practicing in that area? Do your research early. Contact the individual graduate programs. All the graduate advisors and staff related to that program are more than happy to answer any questions in advance of application to that program. Choose wisely based on the factors that my two friends have outlined, and the rest of the panelists will delve into in terms of finance and what schools can offer. At the end of the day, you have to choose the LLM according to what your needs are. And I'm going to pass it back to Raj.
Thank you very much, Joanne. Now I would like to invite Adam from University of East London.
So much, Roger, and hello to everybody. A very warm welcome from a very windy East London as it currently is. My name is Adam Doyle. I'm Director of Careers and Enterprise at the University of East London, and my learned colleague Barry Collins, the Head of Law, Justice and Policing, is with us also here today. Discussing the added value of an LLM degree, it's important to take a look at actually it's wider than you might potentially see. So, for example, an LLM degree might be one to develop that further knowledge. It's already been discussed, the specialism, particularly an area where you want to go into a particular aspect of law that can only be taught with experts from a particular university. But the LLM degree itself might also give greater knowledge to go for a career outside of law and legal practice, and take a look at, say, such as roles in public service, also including aspects such as working in journalism or working with industry, but bringing that expert knowledge as being relevant to that particular public body, NGO, or aspect of industry itself. The fact is, the added value also gives the ability to undertake research, to argue well, to be able to form good papers with regard to how to look at complex issues and clarify them for a wide-ranging audience. So the skills you develop from the LLM degree are also, as well as being brilliant for legal practice, absolutely fantastic for a wide range of careers on top. The LLM degree, and this is important, I think, across the entire consortium, it is recognized as being a prestigious qualification as well. It's one that really does stand out on the CV for your prospective employers, and that includes for academia as well. You may want to be taking a look at an academic career. The LLMs which are offered across the consortium of the universities here today are absolutely key ones. We're maybe taking a look at that fundamental step to begin moving away from the undergraduate studies into that academic career by engaging in a rigorous postgraduate program. I hope that's of value, and if you've got any further questions, looking forward to answering them later.
Thank you so much, Adam, and thank you for everyone for joining us today. My name is Andrew Horsfall. I'm the Assistant Dean of International Programs here at Syracuse University College of Law, located in Syracuse, New York. I first want to echo everything that Adam has offered to you in terms of advice to think about an LLM degree and provide some additional advice and perspective as well. I think it's important to mention and note that an LLM will provide you with a broad range of exposure to the legal system and legal education. So all of our programs, all of our law schools offer many, many specialized elective courses that you should plan to take. But my hope is that your LLM program experience goes beyond the classroom. And so as you think about learning law and expanding your exposure to legal education and legal practice, hopefully you are also working to develop your professional persona. And so what does that mean? How do you do that? So my hope is that you spend your time not only living the life of a traditional student, going to class, writing papers, going to the library, right? Something you're probably familiar with from your undergraduate days. You will certainly be doing a lot of that in your master's program, but hopefully you will be getting out of the law school, out of your studies and into opportunities and experiences that will expose you to practice. Perhaps you will be able to do pro bono work or volunteer lawyering work in the community where your law school is located. Hopefully you will meet with the professionals in the career services office or professional development experts who can sit down with you to talk about updating your resume, your cover letter, how to navigate a successful job search, either in the country where you're studying or elsewhere, how to plan for life after an LLM in terms of your professional trajectory. Perhaps there will be internship opportunities, maybe externships, which are internships for credit as well. Hopefully, your law school will also provide you with many opportunities to network. So that is an opportunity for you to expand the people that you know, the lawyers that you know, the folks who are practicing in areas that you might be interested in. So through panel discussions, through networking events, social events, et cetera, you should be showing up to all of this. And it should be your plan to step into and lean into any opportunity to meet other lawyers and have them know who you are. Let them know you're an LLM student from another country, perhaps, who's interested in a particular practice area. You need to form these relationships, and the best place to do that is in your LLM program. And last but not least is to focus on skills-based courses. So classes that will teach you negotiation skills, writing skills, research skills, mediation, how to actually do some of the work that you'll be doing beyond your LLM program. My hope is that you come to an LLM with a plan. So have some of these on your list, your strategies that you can pursue during your program. Perhaps also, depending on where you study and some of your other credentials, you'll be able to gain professional licensure to practice in the jurisdiction where you're studying as well. In New York State, it's quite common for foreign educated lawyers to become eligible to sit for the New York bar exam or several other bar exams here in the United States. So again, these are questions that you should explore further with your LLM program, but know that it may be possible too. So again, your goals should involve more than simply to learn about the law, but you certainly need to be able to engage with it as well. And I hope that's helpful advice for you. It's certainly an added value that I see from my students in the LLM program. And I'm happy to share some of that advice with you and talk about it in more detail later on in this program. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Adam and Andrew. That was very insightful. We all know that we've been through the most challenging times of our generation over the past 2 years in terms of the pandemic, and that has changed the way that we learn. It also changed the way we taught at the universities as well. So what does that mean for 2022 in terms of learning? If you're planning to do an LLM this year, how COVID might impact you for this year? I just wanted to invite Carly to have a just share her insights. Unfortunately, we don't have Zoe today joined due to various reasons, but I'll try and include some information. I'll try and fill in for Zoe from the UK perspective if it is required. So with that, Carly, over to you.
Hi everyone. I'm Carly from the University of Texas. Hello from Austin. And actually, my colleague Zoe did pop in from Newcastle, so she'll be helping me along with this presentation. First off, I do want to say that the borders are open to come study. We have been having LLMs even through 2020 when the world was closed down. We did have a graduating class. So, borders are open. LLM programs are open, and we want to see you in our programs.
Hi, everyone. I'm Zoe. I just wanted to tell you that before you decide to take up an LLM, it's very important that you actually do some research on the country you want to visit. Because in the UK, for instance, there are still a few restrictions when it comes to entering the country because of COVID. However, most of them are very, very lax at the moment, and they are entirely vaccination status dependent. So it is entirely possible to enter the country even if you're not fully vaccinated. You may, however, have to go through certain hurdles in order to continue with your stay here.
And then once you have figured out what you need to do to get into the country, your institution, your university that you go to might also have some specific regulations. So they might require mask wearing, they might require some social distancing, there may be, some different restrictions within the university. So again, you will need to do some research on each university, talk to the program coordinators, talk to us. We are happy to help you and let you know what our institutions are requiring. For example, at the University of Texas, we highly recommend mask wearing, but we don't require it.
Hi guys. Well, at Newcastle, we have returned to almost entirely in-person teaching. There are still some online options just to ensure that we are open to any eventuality should things turn bad again, although we really hope this is not going to happen again. Having said that, generally we offer in-person teaching, lectures and seminars go on as planned. Students are generally required to, students and staff are generally required to wear masks when in enclosed spaces, but generally all teaching takes place in constantly ventilated spaces.
And one really important thing that I know you all want to get from an LLM is that community building, which can be hard on Zoom. But with this pandemic, it's really brought a lot of kind of creativity into our LLM community building opportunities and networking opportunities. So even though, maybe we can't do the same things we did in person everywhere all the time like we used to, we are still finding creative ways to get together. For example, lots of outdoor activities. We have movies on the lawn, and lots of just getting together in safe ways to make sure everyone feels comfortable. And with networking opportunities, it's actually been really good because there's a lot of, you can join job fairs instead of having to fly across the country or across the world for a job fair. You're able to join via Zoom. So we've really have been trying to create those experiences, even though there are some restrictions.
I wanted to echo Carly's input here. Basically, at Newcastle, we have been holding, for instance, recruitment fairs online, although most of these are now are moving to in-person conditions, usually in large open spaces. We also have various initiatives for LLM students and postgraduate students in general to come together, usually through outdoor events and various outdoor socials. But all of these are going to continue even after the whole COVID debacle has been dealt with.
And one positive thing that this has kind of opened up for the students that I've seen is that there are now different opportunities for employment, both kind of during the LLM degree and after. So I have found a lot of my graduates able to get jobs remotely. So they're able to stay in Austin, but work for a law firm somewhere else in the country, which, you know, normally wouldn't have been a possibility for them. So we've seen actually our employment of the LLMs go up because there are more jobs being accessible to them now in this remote world.
In the UK, things are not as remote, but yes, we have actually moved to a hybrid context where much of our work takes place online. And this is definitely something every LLM graduate can actually take advantage of. Thank you.
But remember, you really do need to talk to every single institution. So I recommend that, you know, after this session, getting in contact with all of the great schools that we have here online to make sure that you know exactly what's expected of you when you arrive. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Carly and Zoe. I'm sorry about that, Zoe. I didn't see you coming. So, but good to have you on the chat. So with that, that was very, very helpful because it's changing. The COVID restrictions and things are changing every day. So it's a great advice to get in touch with the institution to get to know what their specific criteria is in terms of the teaching and learning. With that, I would like to invite Samudra from UC Davis School of Law to talk about LLM options in the USA in general. Samudra, over to you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Raj. And thank you so much, all the participants being here. And my name is Samudra Kugel with UC Davis School of Law. And today I'd like to talk about US LLM options. But my colleagues from other part of the world, I'm sure they will include their LLM options, or if there's any other special programs they're doing during their presentations or when you meet with them one-on-one. And so the general, in the US, you can do general LLM program. And those programs, in my opinion, are kind of the most popular. At least UC Davis School of Law, we get a lot of applications for general LLM program from international students. And also in the US, or many law schools, including UC Davis School of Law, you could customize your LLM program. So what does that mean? You may have specific goals, the time that you're spending in the US in your LLM program, and to achieve that goals that you can upfront with your admission team or the advising team at the law school before even you get admission, kind of you can start that process if you have specific needs that you needed to accomplish. So those are the if you researching LLM programs, if you come across, you're able to do customized LLM program in a specific law school, that is what that means, how to custom your program. So it's good for you to inquiry and have a conversation about the customized programs. And also you may see that some law schools talk about LLM with a special area of study. So what does that mean? That you can specialize in a specific LLM concentration. So for example, UC Davis School of Law, we do have a business law, and then international law, criminal law, intellectual property, human rights, the list goes on. So, and environment law, for example. So it's really important that if you're specifically looking for a special concentration, that finding a short list of law schools that offer that concentration, that you then that way you could specifically apply to those universities or the law schools. So and also in the US, we do have, and it's kind of getting popular, that 2-year LLM program. So if you wanted to study a 2 years instead of most common 1-year LLM program, that it is an option with some law schools in the US. And this helps with students to achieve their goals and stay longer time in the US if they wish, and get that academic and cultural experience. But again, of course, at UC Davis School of Law, that if you're studying a 2-year program, it is a cost twice, because you will be earning twice the credits. So that's something to be aware of. And also in the US, another thing to kind of notice, we do have the most common start date. It's a fall term, which is August for most of the schools. That again, you have to kind of think about the quarter school, which is like a term schools versus semester. So it's a fall, consider most probably August or a September start date in the US. Also, some law schools offering spring start, which is a January start date. So with your academic calendar, it's good for you to figure out which start date appropriate for you or makes sense for you. So that's all I have, and I'm going to hand over to my colleague Erica to discuss more about LLM options and other admission related informations. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Raj, do you mind moving to the next slide? Perfect, thank you.
Okay, all yours. Thank you.
No worries. So I'm Erica Silbiger. I am actually, good morning from New York City with Cardozo School of Law. So I'm going to expand on some of the details that my colleagues have already touched upon, but as it pertains to the admissions and financial aid slide, the actual process of applying, which will again be expanded on even further later. So I'm not going to go too much in depth with it. For anyone who's attended any previous presentations that I've given, I generally, fewer words on the slide is my way to go, but I purposefully put many words on this one to show that it really depends on where you're applying. So it's more of a visual of, you need to do the research, you need to look into the process itself of the school that you're applying. So this is more of a general overview that will hopefully encourage you to specifically reach out to the admissions departments where you are. So step one is always to go straight to their website to look up as much as you can, and then give their office a call and talk to their admissions counselors to learn about their process specifically. Before, like I said, before even applying, you want to look up the curriculum offerings, any of the research that the faculty has done, who do you want to study under, who might you want to do some scholarship with, the location. For example, in New York City, as Andrew has mentioned, you know, if you want to sit for the New York State Bar, which is a very prestigious bar to sit for, then you would want to do a program in New York, and same in California, Texas, London, and wherever it is that you want to practice. You need to make sure that the licensing of where you want to practice fits with your career interests. Diversity and inclusion, which should actually, I've mentioned first, that's most important. Where are you going to feel welcome? Where are you going to learn the most from your peers? Where are your peers going to learn from you? Where will you be able to contribute to the classroom discussion? Financial impact, is this something where it's an expensive school? Like, for example, Cardozo is a bit pricey, but you know, the return on investment is also great, just like all of these other schools as well. So you want to make sure that you're looking into the school that is economical for you as well. So when it comes to legal education in the US, as has already been mentioned, there are a number of different options. So you have the JD degree, the 1-year LLM. There's also a 3-year LLM to JD transfer, which is something you might want to look into if it's something that, let's say, you want to get a license in the United States and you want to practice. JD is very popular for those who practice law in the US, and then to have the LLM specialization. So you might want to look into that. Just look at the different offerings that each school has. As has already mentioned, the different options for foreign lawyers in the US. Again, you could study for that full JD. You can be a foreign legal consultant or by exam, by the bar, where you can meet the requirements through the LLM degree, which also have, depending on the school, the bar requirements within it. So for example, in New York, if you want to sit for the New York State Bar, there are certain courses that you need to take in your LLM degree. And I know that goes the same for other states and other countries as well. So you want to make sure that the program that you are applying to will have those courses and will have the credit requirements if the bar is something that you want to do. So again, look into the program, look at the school's website, give them a call. So in terms of the admissions process, I have these little white stars next to everything to just, again, reiterate that it depends. And my colleagues are going to go further in depth into the actual requirements later. So I'm not going to take up too much time on that. So I just wanted to mention that the application overall, make sure that it is thorough and detailed. Make sure that you really portray your passion for the subject matter, your interests, your career interests. How is this program going to help you? How are you going to contribute to the program? Can you succeed in a rigorous academic environment? You want to make sure that your letters of recommendation from your faculty members, if you choose to have a faculty member write one, that they portray your leadership skills within the classroom, that you're, again, your ability to succeed in that kind of environment. Your comprehension of the subject and industry standards as well. Again, you don't need to be an expert in all things law before applying. That's, the job of your professors to help you get to that point. But to still be knowledgeable of the industry is very, very important. And like I mentioned before, passion and clear career goals. So you want to make sure that it really shows in your application, in your personal statement, whatever is required for that program, in which I have a little bullet part down here of the general requirements with a little asterisk that it depends, again, which is going to be discussed later. Just check with your admissions office. Just make sure that you are going to be able to submit everything that's necessary. Some schools don't require personal statements. Some don't require a language score. So you want to make sure that you are submitting everything that is required and maybe not submitting too much or whatever it is. Again, just look through it. In terms of scholarships, which have been mentioned before, you want to check through the process. Sometimes there's an appeal process. Sometimes that you need to check to make sure that it's whether it's merit-based or need-based, because those that are merit-based, you don't want to send, an appeal letter saying, oh, I need the money because of the economic whatever in my country. It's a merit-based award, which means that it's based on the academic credentials in your application. How strong are you academically? Is your writing skills, things like that. So you want to make sure that you are your merit is showing so that you can get that scholarship. Based on your experience, some programs require professional experience, some do not. So you want to make sure that that's also showing, as sometimes scholarship depends on that as well. Any academic professional challenges. So what I mentioned before about the appeals, if you feel that you should have been offered more scholarship money, awarded more scholarship money, it is okay to reach out to the admissions office and say, hey, look, my application showed that I'm awesome and here are all the reasons why I'm awesome. Can you please review my application one more time? Maybe you missed something. And I promise you, you will always receive a response that either says, I'm sorry, we can't review right now, or you know what, let's go back to the admissions committee, let's go back to the scholarship committee and see if we could just look through it one more time. The worst they will say is no. The best that will happen, you'll get more money. So always try and reach out if it's something that you feel should be reevaluated. So again, the overall take on everything that I just mentioned is that it depends. Please look at the website of where you're interested in applying. Please call the office to learn more. There's a lot of times not everything's on the website. Maybe not everything is always updated. I know sometimes we have an issue with that too. So you want to make sure that you call the office, you speak to the people who work there, you want to speak to the admissions counselors, build rapport. Communicate is really number one. As long as you're communicating with the department, with the admissions counselors, you can't go wrong. So that is my little spiel. And so I'm going to kick it over to our next slide. Thanks all.
Thank you, Erica. Thanks very much for that. I remember two of your key messages last time as well, like, it depends, and check the website. So that's super. So yeah, that's a great message. We've heard from about the admissions and financial aid from the US law school's point of view. Can I request Toby to share his insights about the admission process and how to go about applying for an LLM from the UK and EU law schools perspective? Toby, over to you, please.
Brilliant. Thanks, Raj, and thanks, Erica, as well. And warm welcome to everyone joining us today from a rather wet and windy Edinburgh. So yes, as Raj said, I'm here today to talk to you, give you general advice and guidance about applying to study for an LLM in the UK and in the EU. The next slide. So what I would say is, obviously, when you're thinking about applying for an LLM, and as Eric had said, do your research on the law schools that you're interested in studying in, and the LLM programs that you're interested in, the courses, the cities, the country, everything like that. So you are sure that you definitely want to apply for the specific LLM that you are interested in. In addition to this, obviously, and this is quite standard stuff, so I'm just going to go quite quickly through it, and you can obviously always follow up with questions after the formal presentations. So obviously, check entry requirements. As one of my colleagues said earlier, whilst a lot of LLM degrees require a law degree, not all LLM degrees require law degrees. Say in human rights, for example, can generally accept applicants who say maybe come from an international relations background. So definitely check entry requirements. Obviously, if the LLM that you're applying to is taught in English, then check the English language requirements for that specific institution. Next crucial thing is be very aware of start dates and the application deadlines. Now, most law schools and universities in the UK and the EU will have a start date in, say, September, October time, that kind of late summer, early autumn. But some will also have start dates in January or February. So it's very important to be aware of the start dates and the corresponding application deadlines. Alongside that, being aware of any scholarship and funding deadlines. Is you want to early enough to be able to apply for any funding that you might be interested in applying to, but also you want to apply as early as possible, just in case there's any delays with processing your application, but also so you can get a decision, and hopefully if your application is successful, then that allows you more time to obviously sort out any financing, but also look for accommodation, and generally just prepare yourself for what would probably be moving abroad to a new country and a new city. Raj, can you go on to the next slide for me, please?
Sorry about that. Yeah, just one.
That's all right, no problem.
My computer is a little slow today. Yeah, there you go.
Brilliant.
Sorry.
Thank you. Thanks. So obviously, application process itself will be an online application. So this is some standard things that you will be asked to provide as part of your application, and it's important to have ready for when you apply. That will generally speed up the admissions team's ability to process your application and therefore get a decision to you as well. So obviously any degree certificates that you may hold and their related transcripts. Most universities in the UK and in the EU will require at least one reference, but some will require 2 academic references. In some cases, where you may have, say, been working professionally for a number of years, and say an academic reference may not be the most relevant reference. Some institutions, including ourselves at Edinburgh, will accept professional references as well. One of the key parts to an application in the UK and the EU is your personal statement. Obviously, this is taking account that to the program to which you're applying to. But in terms of your personal statement, what we're really looking for is motivated students who have a clear understanding of the LLM that they're applying to, have a clear motivation for wanting to study it and for wanting to study at that particular institution. You may have also kind of future career goals as well. So generally thinking about your personal statement, giving that some due consideration and spending a little bit of time on it is certainly recommended, as it is an important part of your application. Most universities will also take into account any relevant professional or voluntary experience, so that could be internships as well. So that can generally help strengthen an application as well. I should say at this point, Koch University do not require the personal statement or anything like that. There is an entrance written exam and interview as part of their formal application process. Okay, so I think the only other thing I would say, just to reiterate, so do your research, find out the application process, apply early, and I think, as Erica said, communication with the school that you're applying to and the admissions team is crucial, especially if, say, you may be having problems collating any documentation or anything like that. So I think keeping your admissions team up to date is definitely recommended. I know after this that we were due to hand over to Todd from the University of Melbourne, but I believe he's had some technical problems today and he's not going to be able to join us for this the formal presentation and for this session. Would welcome any inquiries from anyone attending today, and I think one of my colleagues will probably put his email address into the chat area, so if after this you have any questions about applying for an LLM at the University of Melbourne, you can email Todd. Okay, thank you very much. Back to you, Raj.
Thank you, Toby. Thanks for that. Yes, as Toby mentioned, Todd could not join us today, unfortunately. So we have, you'll be able to see Todd's email ID in the chat box. So if you have any specific questions regarding entry admission criteria for University of Melbourne, please feel free to email Todd. So with that, we came to the end of the presentation today, which is the part 1, and I think it would be apt for us to move into Q&A session. So if you have any questions, please, if you can pop them in the chat box. It just said, I think it'll be better if you can type in your question rather than just because we have people joining from different parts of the world. So it may not. If everyone unmutes, it's just going to be we won't be able to hear the question. So yeah, please go ahead and pop in your questions there. And depending on the nature of the question, one of us will pick it up and try and answer the question for you. Or on the other note, if you feel like you would like to have a one-on-one sort of time with us, we can also go into a breakout session in the next. Actually, as I can see, I'm already seeing the breakout sessions being allocated. So feel free to join us if you prefer a one-on-one chat. Melissa, is that should be?
I've opened all of the breakout rooms, so I think you're all joining different rooms right now, or some of you have started to join different room. So again, for our participants, you can then do the same.
Perfect. So you could just select the name of the university. That will pop you into that particular breakout session, and then you will have the opportunity to move around the move around the rooms as well. So you can go and visit us individually. Perfect. Thank you very much for your time, and thank you everyone for the lovely presentations. It was very informative. Thank you. Have a good day.
So I'm seeing some messages on the chat. There's one participant who's saying he can't see the links to the breakout room. So if you touch your screen, if you're on a mobile phone, then you will see the Zoom meeting panel on the top or at the bottom, and you should see 3 dots where it says more, and you should be able to see breakout rooms there as an option, and then you can choose the breakout room that you would like to join. Okay. If you still can't see that, please type on the chat which university you would like to join, and then I will assign you. So just bear with me as I do that in case you're not seeing the breakout room link, okay?
Hi, everyone. If you have general questions, we might even answer from here. I see that not many of you going into breakout rooms. If you have specific questions, you can unmute yourself, or you can simply use the chat box if you are not willing to go into breakout rooms for individual programs. We're also here to answer your questions.
Hi, good afternoon. I have a question. Can I please ask the question?
Of course, go ahead, please.
Okay, my name is Hussam. I'm calling you from Qatar. I'm a civil engineer. I have an MBA and I'm working in construction claims. And I'd be interested if you can please tell me or advise me with respect to something that in terms of suitable LLM for myself.
Of course. Raj, would you like to take this?
Hi, sir. Yes. Sorry about that. Could you repeat the question, please, Hassan? Hussam, sorry.
Yes. Okay. My name is Hussam.
Yeah.
I'm working currently in Qatar.
Okay.
I'm a civil engineer. I have an MBA, and I'm working in construction claims. I'd like to take an LLM to support me in order to support me in terms of the kind of work that I'm doing. Could you please advise me?
Do you have any particular destination in mind, Hussam? Like, you've been thinking about?
Not particularly. I'm a Canadian citizen.
Okay.
Ideally, I would like to stay in the Middle East or around the Middle East.
Right.
The other question, actually, I'd like to know is what is the possibility of doing an LLM remotely? If you can also advise me on that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure most of there are a lot of law schools who are participating in the session today do offer online programs as well. So, for example, like University of Law, we do have a big online cohort where we offer various specializations. So you can do a full-time or as well as part-time LLM programs remotely as well. So it just depends on. It depends on your, sort of time commitments for how much time you can allocate. Going to the specializations per se, like, obviously, we do, again, from a University of Law perspective, we do offer about 15 specializations ranging from, you can take LLM LLM General, for example. And I think a lot of law schools do offer a general LLM. What that means is, you don't have to commit to, or it's not a set specialization. You could choose certain modules and make it as a, that might be more relevant to you based on your previous experience and your future career aspirations. So, for example, our LLM is very general LLM is very flexible. So there is no core modules. You enroll into a general LLM, and then you opt. You take certain optional modules that will be of your interest. So in that way, you can graduate. You can tailor the LLM program as per your needs. However, we also have specializations like company law, corporate governance. You can also get into very specifics of intellectual property. I'm sure some of the law schools might have something related to property law. Maybe, I don't know if that's something that is offered. So yeah. So just I think it's the best way to do is just have a think about what type of area you would like to specialize in. And if you're able to find that specialization in any of our law schools websites, and these days the websites are very, very informative. You could just go to our websites, individual, our websites, and just pop that terminology, the specialization or any particular area of interest in the search button, and it will give you a relevant course in that particular area. I don't know if anyone else would like to add anything particularly in specific to Husam's experience, but we do offer, from our University of Law perspective, I think general LLM might be might suit you well, Husam, and we do offer both online, full-time as well as part-time options.
Thank you for that response.
You're very welcome.
Hello.
Hi, LL.M. Yes, please.
Okay. Okay, my name is Llm from Ethiopia. Now I am LLB degree from Arbamink University, but I work in government office, 9-year experience. I'm public prosecutor.
That's fantastic. Yeah.
Okay. I need a scholarship, but so many scholarship ask Toefl.
Yes, LL.M. That is. I mean, it's not only for scholarships, but also I think for most of our universities, Toefl is part of the admission requirement itself. So it's Toefl or any other alternate. Some few universities do accept an alternate test result as well. So, for example, IELTS, or you got Pearson test, and so it just depends on which school you're targeting. So if you are targeting, US schools, then I think your schools are most of them might want a score in Toefl. I don't know, if you have any thoughts on, do you accept any other alternate tests apart from Toefl?
Yeah, but I study government university. I live in the southern part of Ethiopia. Toefl so expensive.
I completely, I know what you mean. So I mean, we do get these requests every day, and I can definitely relate to what you're saying. If one of the options could be, some universities, again, we offer this internal English test. I don't know if any other university does offer that, but there are a few universities in the UK who do offer their own English test. So once you have submitted your application, and if you receive, if you do not have English, you still can get an offer letter. It's a conditional offer letter. And with that condition, if the only condition is English requirement, you can participate in our internal language test. So that is only that it's not available for this option is not there for it's not universal per se. So it is very specific to certain law schools. but most of the universities do require a CELT, which is a common, like, one of the common recognized English tests as part of the admission process itself. I hope I answered your question, Solomon. Like, yeah, it is a requirement, unfortunately.
May I jump in for a little bit for the information, Raj?
Of course, please.
Some participants are interested in Syracuse Law School, and unfortunately, our colleague Andrew has to leave due to a meeting. I'm gonna write his email address on the chat box, so that if you're interested in Syracuse and get to know more about their programs, please contact our colleague Andrew. I am sharing his email address with everyone here. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you very much, Esra. And I can see a couple of...
yeah, I'm going back to my room. If you're interested in Koç University, please join me there. Thank you.
Perfect. And I think there are two people who are inquiring about Leiden. If you could join the breakout session with Annette, she will be able to give you more information on the University of Leiden.
I also wanted to mention that if you don't get a chance to chat with Andrew at Syracuse, if your questions are about studying in New York State in general, I'm happy to answer those questions as well. So you can feel free to jump in or write those in the chat, and I'd be happy to answer any general New York questions for you.
And there was one question. I don't know if Iman is still here in this group, or he must be, like, they might be in the breakout session. But the question was about, is vaccination compulsory to enter your university?
Yes, so in New York, yes, but it depends. It depends. That's my favorite phrase for the day. So yes, it is required for New York State. You must have, it's different rules for every school even. So vaccination or medical exemption, documents for medical exemption is required. But for example, Cardozo, there are options if you've only had your first dose, your second dose, whether you've had the booster or not. We have weekly testing regardless. So every Thursday I have to get tested even though I've had all 3 shots. So it really just depends on the school, because we know that in some countries, especially when you're coming from your country to for the LLM into the States, we know that some countries have different requirements for you to get your vaccination. So we allow a little leeway for that when you come to the States to get your vaccine here, depending on which shot that is. So we don't want to penalize you for not being able to get your vaccination shots in your home country. So I would definitely, call the admissions office for that school that you're interested in. But in New York, a shot at least is required, in addition to weekly testing, depend on the school. Like I said, Cardozo is weekly testing regardless of your vaccine status. And we do so because of the Delta breakouts and the Omicron breakouts and things like that. So even those who have been fully vaccinated have had symptoms and things like that, just around the world even. So we want to be as cautious as possible. It spreads very quickly, very easily. So this is for your safety, for your health, and everybody else as well. Some schools, even with the vaccine requirements, require masks as well. Right now, that mandate has lifted in New York, but our school still requires them. So it just depends. So it really changes for everybody, but there are still mandates and there are still requirements for each school individually. So I would definitely look into it, depending on the school that you're interested in.
Thanks, Erica. I'm just leaving a link here which talks about the guidance from the UK perspective. So there's no specific criteria from the university perspective, from the university itself, but I think in general it's a good idea to understand what are the restrictions in the UK. So that link will give you more information on that one. So LL.M, yes, please, you can send education credentials to us. I don't know if you have the, I think just going back to what we were discussing before. So if you're specifically looking for English language waivers, or if you're not able to, if you do not want to take TOEFL examination, if you're looking for a free language test, you can get in touch with one of us. For example, University of Law, we do offer an internal language test, which is free of cost. You do not have to pay for that. I don't know, Zoe, if Newcastle, do you have any internal language test that might be helpful for LL.M?
In Newcastle, we generally accept the IELTS test, and it's the most common one. The requirements are 6.5 in reading and listening, and 5.5 in everything else. So please do contact our admissions teams in order to give you all the details that you'll require in order to apply.
I also want to throw in that because of the changes due to the outbreak of COVID, some schools have kind of part-time and then also permanently allowing other tests as well. So there are some schools that for a very short time period were allowing various tests because of everything going on, and then stopped doing that. And then there are some schools that accepted those tests and are continuing. So for example, some schools in New York, I know were accepting and are continuing to accept Duolingo scores as well. And that it will just be converted based on its equivalent to the IELTS or the TOEFL as well. So you still have to have a certain score in those tests for whatever institution you're interested in. But there are some other tests as well that are now accepted. So I would definitely reach out to see if that school has changed their language test requirement, and if they're accepting additional tests, or what the scores are for those and the equivalency.
Sorry, I just want to add, because we do receive also these questions about TOEFL test fee waivers, and you can also contact the TOEFL, the organization that manages the TOEFL test, which is called ETS. I will type the website on the chat, because they do have some test fee scholarships based on financial need that you can also apply to when you're registering for the test. So that's another option, so that you can take the test, but perhaps receive a discount or a full waiver depending on your situation. So I will type that on the chat.
That's actually a great point. Sorry to jump in again, but I wanted to, this can save some money. So I wanted to make sure to mention this. But if you're familiar with LSAC, which is where a lot of students will apply for their LLM through that program, it can be kind of expensive to do that. So I would encourage to try and apply directly to each school that you're interested in, because sometimes they offer fee waivers. So I know a number of schools actually don't even have application fees anymore. So instead of paying hundreds of dollars with LSAC, I would ask the school directly if you can apply directly to them and for free, and that saves you some money.
Just as a reminder oh, okay.
Sorry, I just got one question there from Marcelo. I would like to hear the admission officer's thoughts on an LLM immediately after my first level law degree. For context, law is postgraduate program in my country. I'm wondering if my application for a LLM is futile. Marcelo, do you have any destination in mind? Are you more, would you like to hear from a US law school or a UK law school or a European law school? If you can let us know, then probably we might be able to give you a better, better sort of a response to it, because they can change. It depends on the destination as well, where you're planning to pursue your further career. Otherwise, if you want one of us to go and give you a context from different destinations, we'll be happy to. Well, yeah. Should we start with one of the US law schools? If you'd like to take a shot at it, and then you're North American rather. So,
I could jump in again, I guess.
Yeah,
Sorry if I'm
course,
taking up so much airtime.
So I think Marcela's question was about that she doesn't have experience. I think that's what I think she's
right. And I mean, at least based on my experience, our school in New York, etc., I would say it absolutely does not hinder your chances. Most of our students come from two different pools. One is those who are coming straight from an LLB or a JD or some other law academic background, and those who have been practicing, maybe own their own firm, for 20 years. So it really adds to the diversity of the classroom, to the classroom discussions. We actually think that students from all different types of backgrounds academically, wherever you're from, geographically, wherever you're from, helps make the classroom experience that much more enriching. So I would again ask the admissions counselors, because there are some schools that require 1 to 2 years, if not more, of experience practicing or doing, some other sort of legal work in the industry. But there are also some schools where it's absolutely not a problem whatsoever. A lot of our students do come directly from their first degree in law experience. So it depends, but I know that based on my experience, it hasn't been a factor or major factor for us.
Thanks, Erica. Yeah, Marcela, from the University of Law point of view as well, we do not need, there's no set criteria in terms of the work experience that we look for in an application. We do have, again, as Erica said, our cohort is very diverse. They come from different parts of the world and from different backgrounds as well. Like, some of them have been practicing law for a while, but some of them are fresh graduates, as you like you. So it just depends on it's a good proportion of UK students coming to do their LLMs in the UK. They do come without they just come out after their first LLB degree. So it's not uncommon to wanting to do a LLM or doing an LLM without prior work experience.
I'm just curious to hear some of your career goals, of what you are all interested in doing after getting your LLM, or why you are looking to get your LLM. If anyone wants to jump in and talk about that, just so that we're curious who we're speaking to.
We have some shy participants, I guess. in this session. There are, I think there were a couple of people who joined us very recently. So just to let you know, we're here in the main session, but if you would like to join one of the specific law school breakout rooms, you can type which law school you would like to talk to, and then we'll assign you to the breakout room.
Hi, Marcelo. I'll kind of jump in back at you for a second, because we just have a new concentration in cybersecurity law at the University of Texas, and I will say that this kind of actually goes off the last question as well about, starting your LLM right after your LLB, and what the benefits are of that versus waiting for a few years. And the students that we get at the University of Texas are a mixed bag also. So some do start right after their LLB because they kind of know what they want to do. They're looking for something specific. Maybe their first law school didn't have anything in technology or cybersecurity, or so they're looking for a way to kind of give themselves a boost into the field, getting the education side of it. And then we also have some that have been practicing in one type of law for years, but they're looking to pivot into this new field, especially in the cybersecurity realm, because it is so new. There haven't been lawyers in that field for the last 10, 15 years. Maybe a lawyer's been in the corporate side, but now they realize that cybersecurity is this amazing kind of next adventure that everyone is going to start going on. So that's why they look for a program to kind of focus on that. So it's definitely, I think either way, it has been, I've seen students be really successful and then getting jobs afterwards. But it does really depend on kind of what your trajectory is. We even have students who come and they don't know what they want to do. And I've seen them take anything from space law to animal law to human rights. I mean, just kind of trying to figure out a little bit more what they want to do. But coming in with a clear idea like tech law, that will definitely make your decision on, where to apply for LLMs. You can make it much more strategic that way.
And Vanessa, I have just, sorry, Marcelo, I just, put the link to the course that Kali was talking about in the chat box, one of their LLM cybersecurity. And I've also included another link from the University of Law. We offer LLM data protection and IP, if that might be interesting to you.
Hello, can I just have a follow-up question, please? Yeah, so in relation to what you stated, it's possible for a person to, just go into his or her LLM without actually fully knowing what he or she wants to do. But my worry is that doesn't that dilute my application or my personal statement? Because some would say that you have to be very pointed in your personal, as what was stated earlier, some schools would really rely on your personal statement in addition to your academic achievements. So my worry is that having that type of a personal essay, which would say that I'm not really sure as to what I really want to do in life, would be taken as a weak personal statement then. So I just wanted to, harmonize that with the ability of taking as much subjects and not having the second guess, because I'm still learning what field of law I would want to go into. And I think that LLM would be one of the mechanisms by which I could do so, because I come from a country by which a lot of the fields in the US, the UK, the EU are not as popular yet. Like, for instance, competition law, tech law, all these subjects are yet to be fully developed. And I guess that's one of the reasons why I think an LLM more than work experience would be suited for me. More so the fact that it's a law degree, and where I'm from is a graduate degree, which means that I've pretty much followed the US system, by which I had to do a pre-law, a law school, and then wait for the sitting of the bar examinations, and then an LLM. So it would be economically, the timing as well is something that I'm considering. So again, just to my question, how would we then reconcile the fact that you have to have a strong personal statement, which would show yourself, what you want to do, with a personal statement that it's also possible that you're still trying to venture in things. Thanks.
I think that's a great question. And I just wanted to jump in because I know that I had mentioned that on my slide. I don't think in some programs, I think that actually is a plus for you. I don't want you to feel like not knowing is going to hinder you. There are some programs, like for example, Cardozo, we have a general studies program. And that program is for those students who they're not sure, but they know they want to go into the industry. They know they need an LLM. They know why they need an LLM. But they're not exactly sure yet. There are two things. Either one, they're not exactly sure yet their concentration of interest. Two, they want to dabble in a number of different, because you could take, it's basically, I call it a choose your own adventure program, because you could take a number of different classes in different areas. And three, or you want to sit for the New York State Bar, and it's just the easiest way to accumulate all of the requirements and the credits to be able to do that. So I would definitely check and see if certain schools have like let's say, for example, Texas Law, if they have a general studies program, but also the cybersecurity program. And then if there's a possibility to transfer into it or something like that. So I know for us, when you start the application process, if you say, I'm interested in general studies because I'm not yet sure, but this is what I want to do, or this is the kind of work, like you had mentioned, you were very specific in exactly what you want to do, and the passion there shows. And you want to mention that in your personal statement. And then even there are some schools where you can actually change your mind. There are certain schools you apply directly to the program. And so you want to make sure you know which ones those are. And there are some where you apply to the LLM and then your concentration is chosen when you register for courses. So you can do that as well. You can apply to the general studies program, say, all these things that you just mentioned. And then when registration comes, you can say, hey, I finally figured it out. This is what I want to do. Can I get into these classes? And most programs that I'm familiar with will say, absolutely, go for it. So again, it depends on the school, because some schools, like I said, you are applying directly to, this concentration or this concentration. So you want to make sure that the school that you're applying to the general program, and then you can decide from there. So I don't think that it will hinder your chances at all, unless you are applying, directly to, let's say, intellectual property, but you're like, but I don't know anything about intellectual property. I'm not sure if I even want to do it. Like, of course, that's not going to look great to the admissions counselor. But if you say, I'm going to do the general studies because I'm interested in intellectual property, so I want to take a class here and there, then that's very different. So I think that actually is even a strong suit, that you're not sure and you want to touch on these different things so that you're either more well-rounded when you graduate, or that you have a better idea of what it is that you want to do. So I again, depending on the school, I don't think that will be a problem. The only way I could see that as a problem is if you are applying directly to a concentration and you say you don't know if you want to do the concentration, that could be a problem. So other than that, I think it's fine.
And another point is, Marcelo, is most of our students who come to do their LLMs from other countries with us, they're also looking for, though they are fresh graduates, they may not be very sure about what they want to do. But I think LLM is an opportunity, as Erika said, that's an opportunity for you to for them to sort of explore their interest areas even further, and also that's an opportunity to gain some international experience as well. So when they go back to their home country, so they would have had this 1 or 2 years of experience studying in the UK or US or other countries, and studying with 30 different nationalities, 40 different nationalities, and some specialization that will be very helpful when they go back to their home countries, when they try to in their job search. So that's why I think it's very common for students without experience coming and doing LLM because of all these reasons.
Okay, thank you. Unless other counselors will be adding into that, I just wanted to ask about getting experience whilst I'm doing my LLM. Could you please be able to elaborate on those, like student clinics that are available for international students, law journals, law reviews, mooker competitions, and the like? Thank you.
I don't know if anyone of you
also
like to start with that.
Sorry.
Go ahead,
I forgot to add. maybe externships, because I think that would be one of the mechanisms by which I would, as a person who have yet to experience most of legal work, I would be very much interested with externships and legal clinics. Thanks.
If no one else is going to talk, I'll talk first. At Texas Law, both our international and domestic LLM students are able to join in all of those things. Actually, that's the list that I go off of. We have law journals, moot courts, clinics. We have externships for credit, and we highly recommend that our students get involved. Actually, one of our LLMs won the internal moot court 2 years ago, even against all the JDs, which I'm very, very proud of him for that. But, there's so many opportunities to get involved. And we also have a very strong pro bono program. All of our LLMs take a 20-hour pro bono pledge for the year. And if you're taking the New York bar, you have to do 50 hours anyway. So there's lots of opportunities to get those skills, work with clients, and really learn the theory, but also the application of the theory. And looking across these amazing schools, I'm sure they all have similar opportunities for students really to get involved. But I'll put links to Texas Law's experiential learning in the chat and turn it over to one of my colleagues.
From the University of Law perspective, Marcella, that I think quite similar to the other UK universities as well. Every university, we do have a career services team, employability team, depends on how they refer the team to team as. But yeah, so the employability service team, that they are at the forefront in terms of finding these opportunities for the students. And University of Law, again, as Carly mentioned, there are lots of opportunities for our students to gain some work experience while they are studying with us. Pro bono cases is again one of the most of our universities. We have 9 campuses in the UK, and most of our campuses do have a pro bono clinic in the campus itself. So some, as part of some programs, it is compulsory. Again, like if you're planning to become a barrister or a solicitor in the UK, you are required to do certain or gain some work experience as part of the qualification, anyways. But these pro bono opportunities or any other internships are available for the LLM students as well.
Thank you, Raj. I can also give some examples on how our students get involved in practical learning. Our LLM students, undergraduate students, and PhD students are all welcome to join our teams on Jessup International Moot. We have a Nelson Mandela Human Rights Moot Court, Wismoot Moot Court in Vienna, for example. These are a couple of examples that we prepare students to represent our not only law schools, also the country, Turkey. So they represent Turkey as a law school in international moot courts. We have a wonderful moot court room in our university, in our faculty, and they benefited from there. And during the pandemic, they participated in all those moot courts online, virtually, unfortunately. But as of this year, they're happy to travel all around the world. And also there is an opportunity in Europe as Erasmus Plus internships. So they can, all LLM students and undergraduate students, they can find internships, they can join internships in Europe in a law firm or international organization funded by the Erasmus Commission. This is an opportunity for students as well. These are really important assets to your LLM studies. These are from me. We have a question from Ubasinachi.
Sorry, I just wanted to add really quickly to that question, which is a great question. 2 things. I know for Cardozo, we have very strict deadlines for our clinics and internships. So I would just be mindful that if that's something you are interested in and specific to a certain school, I would first check with the deadlines to those clinics and internships for that school to make sure that you can get into them. I know sometimes we definitely make exceptions for specifically our LLM students to be able to get into certain clinics, but again, based on certain deadlines. I know it's a lot harder for our spring intake students. So if you're interested in the spring, again, I would reach out for deadlines. In the fall, we have a priority deadline, which shows that if you apply and are admitted by this priority deadline, you have the ability to then apply for these clinics and things like that. So there are certain schools like Cardozo that are rolling admissions. So if you apply and are admitted after the priority deadline, you might not have the same opportunities as other students who applied before the priority deadline. So I would just check that. Also, not necessarily related to the clinics, but related to experience, is a lot of schools also offer OPT, which allows you 1 year of full-time work after graduating from your LLM. And so that gives you the opportunity to have full-time experience in the United States, through your visa for an entire year, either to find full-time employment to be sponsored by another organization, or to go back to your home country to do whatever you want to do there. But that's also an option for a lot of schools. So I would reach out to the school and see if they have OPT as an option as well.
So I think Ubisanachi is raising their hand. Can I kindly ask you to type the question if you can't unmute yourself? If you can also then ask your
question. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. My question goes this way. Like, I've had a lot of stuff from some friends who have schooled in the United States, and we are of the view that mostly in the United States, after you're done with your LLM, students or graduates don't have more opportunities to even work in the United States. It's more like there's a barrier in the United States for graduates for LLM in most universities. And my second question is also with respect to applications. Like the Nigerian school system, some universities do take a whole lot of time before they process placement transcripts. So sometimes when we apply, we have this challenge of getting our transcript on time before the application deadline. So it's more like a challenge. So I don't know how to go about this. Like, how do we go about this in Nigeria?
I think your sound was cutting on and off. So at least in my case, I couldn't fully hear your question. I think you were referring to how do international students go about working during their LLM, if I'm not wrong, and then how you go about applying to a program if you're a student or an applicant from Nigeria. It would be great if you can type a kind of summary of your question in the chat to make sure that we have gotten your question right, and then the law schools here can again answer those questions. Just that the sound was cutting on and off.
I'm trying to type out what I guess it. I don't know if you can hear me now. Can you hear me clearly? Oh, I'll type it out. I'll type it.
I'll just hop in with a question that someone asked me in my individual room is, when is the best time to apply for an LLM? And what advice I gave them was that it should be early. Do not wait till the last minute to apply for your LLM. For example, at Texas, our priority deadline is March 1st. Even if you click send on your application March 1st, the admissions committee might not get your application for another 2 or 3 weeks, because LSAC, we use this, Law School Admissions Council, this like online portal to get your applications. They have to evaluate your transcripts, the letters of recommendation have to come in. So it does take a lot longer for things to actually get to the admissions committee. So I recommend starting your application early. Take a lot of time on your personal statement, and make sure your resume is typo free. Just make sure that you are putting putting forward your best foot. Each piece of your application is your chance to talk to the admissions committee. So don't take anything for granted. If the admissions committee offers you the opportunity to write, a second letter, or you want to really put forward as much information as possible in the best light as possible. So take your time, get it in as soon as possible. At Texas, our application opens September 1st, but I always recommend students to start compiling their application over the summer. You can already reach out to the recommenders and tell them, that they can already upload their recommendation to LSAC, even if you cannot press send until September 1st or August 1st, whenever the school you're applying to is, you can still have everything ready and waiting. Because also a lot of scholarships require that you have a full admission letter before you can even apply for a scholarship. And those can go quickly. So it's better to apply as soon as possible and, get your admission letter, and then you can apply for scholarships as well.
I just want to add, there might be some schools that directly you can apply with the school, like UC Davis School of Law. We recommend students apply through LSAC, or that you can contact us and we are happy to help you directly apply if you have any delays and things like that. So you can always approach the law school and see whether there is an option to apply directly without going through the law school admission council. So there might be that option too. Thank you.
Yeah.
And especially with the embassies taking longer to approve visas, you want to make sure you don't get stuck into that situation where you've been admitted, you've deposited. We actually had this happen to 2 of our Nigerian students and one from Rwanda last semester, where they were admitted, they deposited, everything was good to go. Very, very strong applicants, very strong candidates, and they were very interested. They received great scholarships. But then when it came time for their visa, they had applied too late because it was taking too much time for the embassy to get their visa. So the earliest that you can apply, if you're interested in even just attending law school in general, getting an LLM in general, make sure you start your applications as soon as possible. Reach out to those offices and say, hey, look, I've started my application. I want to get this in as soon as possible. Can you help me? Because I know that I'm going to have an issue with, it's going to take some time with visa. Because also for they had mentioned with scholarship, you need an invitation letter for your visa interview as well. So you need to make sure that you have been admitted in enough time to then get your interview with the embassy and get your visa. And so I think there was a question in the chat about the institutions in Nigeria taking a long time to process students and how to get around that by applying as early as possible, or even applying now for the semester afterwards. So if you're, again, interested, no matter what, going to whatever school for the LLM, if you know that it's going to take a while, it might be an issue with time, apply as soon as you can, even for the following semester, like spring 2023, for example, if you don't think you'll get into fall. Or you can also apply to the fall, and some schools allow you to defer, knowing that you might have an issue. So that's what happened to some of our 2 Nigeria students and our Rwandan student, is they were very interested in attending, but they're having an issue with their visa, etc. So we were able to defer their entrance into next spring so that they won't have that issue and they can just come. So that's also an option. So again, communication with the admissions office, letting them know you're interested. Visa might be an issue, your school might take a long time to process, and they'll stick with you and they'll help you, make sure that you are still able to attend, but, based on these regulations. So just keep in contact with them. So, they don't just assume you're not planning to come.
I just noticed this, the chat question regarding transcripts. Again, this is something you should communicate with admission officers regarding that. Do they needed to have official transcripts right away, or some schools may be willing to look at your scanned copies, and then upon matriculation, you can hand over your transcripts, the originals. So that's something you should communicate with your the law schools that you're applying to see that if there's any flexibility. Right now, you could scan your unofficial copies or grade reports and things like that.
I just wanted to add that from the UK university's perspective, few universities, but not actually, we do have an internal deadline for applications, but the critical deadline will be, especially for international students, will be a CAS deadline, what we call as every international student would require a CAS, confirmation of acceptance, to apply for the visas, and every university would have a deadline by when we will be able to be. Beyond that, we won't be able to issue the CAS. So, because we know that it will not be possible for students to apply for the visa and then come into the UK in time. So that's one of the deadlines that I will keep in mind as well, and then work backwards. So it usually takes about 1 week to 2 weeks for the decision to be made by a UK university in terms of assessing your application. And if you already have your English test, that's great. Otherwise, you'll have to factor that into your application process as well. So, but earlier the better. So even if the universities, a few universities may not have a hard deadline, it's always advisable to start your application as early as you can, because there are a couple of steps which might take longer than students think, especially the English language test, as well as going through the CAS process if it is to the UK, because CAS process for a university would take up to 3 to 4 weeks as well to issue the CAS, which is a mandatory document for you to apply for your student visas.
We have, I think, a question from Nana. Can we hear from you? Or you can use your chat box as well. We can answer your question. Meanwhile, participants, the breakout rooms are on. If you're interested, sorry, please go ahead. Hello?
Hello, good afternoon. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, good afternoon.
So sorry, I keep having the call coming in. So I have a question specifically for you, Law. I don't know if Raj can take that one. There's some courses that I'm interested in the University of Law. I think, but what I noticed is that most of the courses have something subject to academic approval, asterisks right under it. I just want to know the implication of that if I do decide to go for one of those courses. For example, I'm interested in an LL.M in data protection and intellectual property, and I noticed that that particular course has a subject to academic approval written right under it. There's some courses that do not have that. So I want to know the implication of that if I do decide to go with data protection and intellectual property. Is it a situation where after making an application and I do get an admission, would the course change? Would I be told the course is not available? I really just want to understand what dynamics are, basically.
Sure, no, thank you for the question. I mean, it is an academic sort of, or not academic, universities do put all the terms and conditions, so that the students are prepared if in the last minute, if there are any changes to the course, where it is offered and how it is offered. We just want to make sure that the students are aware of this. Data protection is we've been running this course. This is our second cohort. So I don't think that should be a problem. We have 9 campuses as well. So where we run the LL.M program. So sometimes what happens is closer to the intake. So our intake starts in October for LL.Ms. So 8 weeks before the course starting date, we review the course, where it is delivered, and depending on the number of students where enrolled into certain campuses, we try to combined a few cohorts, because if you look at the new courses so every year there are new courses that are launched. So it can happen for sure. Sometimes we may not have the required number of students in that particular campus. So for example, we have a campus in Nottingham, Birmingham, Manchester, Leeds, Chester, which are about 1 hour distance from each other. So it's just like that. But we do give the options. There are certain programs which we offer that are offered in all the campuses. That's like our legal practice course, that is LLM legal practice. That is a guaranteed course. But some of the new courses, we do tend to make a final decision about 8 to 10 weeks before starting date. So going back to your question, what will happen if you are applying for LLM data protection, and if the course is not offered in that particular campus, you will be given a choice to change the campus to another campus of your choice, or you also will be given a choice of another specialization which is closely related to what you have chosen. But because we have so many LLMs, and we also have LLM general. Please go ahead.
Yeah, so sorry, could I defer my admission to, let's say, the following year?
Yes, of course you can defer to the following year. Yes, yeah. Have you already submitted an application, Nina, just out of interest?
No, I have not, but I'm actually trying to process that. I have to get my transcript first from my university. That is in the works, basically. I'm looking at January 2023.
Of course, yeah.
So I'm trying to start my application process immediately.
No problem. Good luck with that.
Thank you.
Are there any specific requirements or any work opportunities in Netherlands? And as we're just talking about career services things and career opportunities for the students in general while they're studying the courses and after course. I don't know if you had any quick thoughts on that from Netherlands point of view.
Well, I can tell from Leiden Law School. I know our programs. I know that many students want to do internships while they're doing their program with us. But as the programs are very intense, we usually sort of discourage this because they have to focus on studying. But the good thing is, and I think this applies to more countries, there's a so-called search year after the program. And this year has to be used within 3 years after graduation. And students can use it either to do an internship or look for a job or, for career perspectives. We were talking about career perspectives in the breakout room for Leiden earlier. Sometimes, of course, law is a complicated thing because on the one hand, you study law from the national perspective. So in this case, the Dutch law system. So it's not that easy to get access to the Dutch bar because you would need to have a Dutch Bachelor of Law program and a Dutch Masters of Law program in order to do so. And of course, our international students usually have a bachelor degree of law from another jurisdiction. So there are not too many international students that really get access to the Dutch bar or to the Dutch legal profession. But of course, many end up as legal consultants, legal advisors with the NGOs or with other big companies, which of course is also what many students are looking for, especially in the business law programs, etc. In-house lawyers. These are really, there are quite a few jobs for that in the Netherlands and in surrounding countries.
No, thank you. Thanks for that information. Yeah. And how does it work in Turkey, Esra? Like in terms of post-study work opportunities for the students? Yeah. Are there any programs like that?
So during their studies, our LLM students use this career portal that we have. Our career services are we also invite law firms, international organizations, and our Law Careers Day. We have a week of events that law firms, international law firms, or global companies and international organizations representatives come, and they talk about their jobs and also give some internship opportunities, talk about that. And also we have alumni event, which is really crucial. So your current students get to meet our alumni and learn from them how they find jobs, or if they have availability in their current departments, in their current companies. So we get to mingle them actually and get to learn from each other. And we also have global organizations like UN departments in Istanbul. So then they always recruit legal professionals in their departments. And when we have opportunities, we post on our career portals and our LLM students find them. But in Turkey, legally, and just only having an LLM, it doesn't allow students to practice law. So they have to have an undergraduate degree in law in Turkey. So just having an LLM wouldn't give the license to practice law, but they can work as a consultant in international law firms, or they can simply work in international companies or international organizations. This is a trick. So just having an LLM doesn't, like this is important issue before applying an LLM degree in Turkey. So, but we have a lot of global opportunities. This is our answer. Melissa, do you have anything to add what we offer to our international students?
Thank you, Esra. I think the one question that we get asked often by international applicants, it's whether it would increase their chances of finding a job in Turkey during or after, during their studies for the LLM program, or after, if they learn Turkish. And I think the same situation may apply to Leiden, because the language is not English in the Netherlands. So whether learning Dutch would help their post-graduation work opportunities with both local companies that have an international footprint, or with global companies. So that's a question I put back to you. I mean, we say in general, it is advisable that you, if you're going to spend a year or 2 years in Istanbul, that you take some time to learn Turkish, at least to a B2 level, because it will basically expand the number of opportunities that you can be considered for, and it will be an asset to show that you may not be proficient enough to perhaps write legal documents in Turkish, but that you are able to work in a professional environment and be understood and understand your colleagues. So that's our general advice for all international students. But if maybe you, Esra, based on your experience with our students, or Annette can also comment on that, is learning the local language an advantage for an LLM international student?
Yeah, I think it is an advantage, because just to make a network, actually, it is important to learn the local language, to learn more about the culture, and also about work environment, and get to meet people in higher positions. They might not even speak English, but they offer a position and only based on your English proficiency, but you need to get along with your colleagues. So it is always important to have a bit proficiency, not fluent, of course, but at least social discussion. So it will allow students to learn about local language, but it is not a must, of course. A lot of international students find jobs in Turkey without having the English proficiency. And how is it in the Netherlands?
It's exactly the same. So I totally agree with everything you said, but I also think not only for work, but also for your social life, speaking the local language is very helpful. I live in a street in The Hague with a lot of expats, and everybody, all my neighbors, if we have a street party or something, everybody starts talking English to each other and to these people. But after a while, because Dutch is our first language, people, and especially, making jokes in the language, etc., people revert back to their own language. And I think also for social occasions, it would be very valuable to speak the language in general. And I think, Esra, you also said that if you come to the Netherlands or to Turkey to study in LLM, you do not need the language, because most people will speak English. Well, especially I think in the Netherlands, I think 87% of the people speak English. So if you go to the supermarket or talk to the bus driver, they probably be able to answer you in English. But if you really intend to stay after your graduation in a particular country, I would really advise you to learn that language of the country. Yeah.
That's great. Thanks for that. Ezra, I think there is a question for you. The question was from Asli. Is it possible to pursue 2 PhD from LLM in Koch University?
I asked, yes, I do remember your name. We might have met in other events, or you just popped in at Koch University. Yes, this is we also offer PhD programs, but you have to have an LLM degree somewhere, even from, like, you can have an LLM from Turkey or abroad, but then you can apply for a PhD. With an LLM degree, you can apply for a PhD. We have a full-time research program on PhD, and it is fully funded. We do not ask for tuition fee on the PhD programs. And if you have further questions, just email me for the details. This is I'm just writing my email address on the chat box for you.
Apparently, Asli is graduated from Koch University. So
yeah, I do remember. Yeah, exactly. I remember your name. So Asta, please keep in touch with me for the details on PhD programs. It's very detailed. And also we have 2 programs on public law and private law. And it is different than LLM programs. Yes, we have Raj, we have a question.
Yes, I think that there's a follow-up question from Nina. Nina, hi. Yes, you can apply for 2 different courses at ULaw. You'll get 2 offer letters, but at some point you'll have to make a decision and let the admissions know so that they can close one of the offers. Technically you can have multiple applications, and those applications will be treated independently. But my advice is not to just tweak the personal statement just a little bit, because you just don't want to tweak the name of the you're applying for an LLM general, but you're talking about data protection in specific. So that would be my advice. Hope that answers your question. Great, thanks. For those of you who have, sorry, go ahead. I was just asking, I can see some new names. So if you have any questions, what we're doing is you could unmute yourself, ask your question, feel free to join us for this conversation, or you can just type your question on the chat box as well. We're just having a general conversation and trying to pick some FAQs and some questions that we are seeing on the chat box. So, yeah. Sorry, Melissa, you were saying something?
No, I was just going to say the same thing. And perhaps if there's a similar question about applying to US schools, whether they can apply to 2 courses within the same school, or if they're applying to the LSAC, if they can submit 2 applications to the same university for different LLM programs. Maybe our US school representatives can help us answer that.
For ours at Cardozo, you can't, because it's so easy to switch programs after applying. It's kind of pointless to apply to more than one. It actually causes much more confusion with the admissions office. So my advice would be to apply to just one, or to apply to the general studies program if you're really not sure. And then along the way, it takes 3 seconds for the admissions counselor to switch you to a different program. So at Cardozo, you're applying to Cardozo. You're not applying to a program. So you're applying for admissions to the LLM, and then when you register, you choose the courses that will allow you to have a concentration in the different areas that we offer, which if you check our website, you can see our 4 main concentrations, but then you can see all of the laundry list of classes and other options that are available that you can take as, I guess, electives, so to speak, if you're in the general studies program. So for us, you would apply once to the program. And then if you change your mind or you're not sure, whatever it is, as long as you change your mind prior to registration, then it doesn't matter. So you could switch as many times as you want. I just don't apply more than once.
You see, Davis, it is very similar that we we only have one application. So then you can have a conversation with your advisor after admitted, that which kind of area that you want to concentrate or customize. I mean, just like Erica said, it's a pretty easy process. So we recommend just applying, or it is only possible in our case to apply to a one program.
I think we have a question from Nancy. Nancy, I can see you raised your hand there.
Thank you. Thank you all. I joined in a bit late. I had a meeting that we're in, but I have a couple of questions, and forgive me if they have been asked. Can you all hear me? Okay, good. So my first question relates to English requirements. I'm not sure if this has been handled by any of the panelists, but in my experience and from applying to various universities so far, I have found that generally there's always an English requirement, whether it's a Toefl or the like. So I come from Kenya, and basically the education system, you are taught in English, and English is one of the formal languages that we use in work and throughout your course of university. So in terms of getting English proficiency tests like TOEFL, it becomes an economic burden, especially given that the validity period is about 2 years. So my main question is it the case or the experience for the panelists that we may have exemptions, especially if your background in terms of education and work has been primarily been conducted through English, or would you still require more proof? Because what I've seen other universities, I think within the UK do, is that they require you to give out your, say, your bachelor's degree, if you have one, and communication from the university that you have undertaken majority of your formal coursework in English. So maybe a clarification on that would be helpful. I have a couple of more questions coming through, but I think it would be more helpful if we could answer them on a case-by-case basis.
No, absolutely, Nancy. Thank you very much for the question. Do you have any preference? Who would you like address your question to? You can pick I
think we can begin with you. We can begin with you because I just heard from Nena that you have a course in data protection, and I'm also quite interested in that. But I'll be happy to hear from the EU perspective as well, that is on Turkey and Leiden, how they treat English proficiencies, and maybe a bit from the state side, just to get a framework, just an understanding of sorts. Thank you.
Sure, Nancy. No worries. I'll just make it very quick. We've already addressed that question before, but I'm happy to go over it again. Yes, we do require English. We do have to ask for a CELT, what we call as an official English language test. As you mentioned, TOEFL is there for that's more for the US law schools. For the UK law schools, it's primarily IELTS, what we call as. So there's IELTS, but there is also different other tests that are approved by most of the UK universities. The Pearson test is one of the other ones. For few universities have started accepting Duolingo as well since the pandemic, and few universities, like for example, University of Law, we have our own internal language test, so that we've launched last year. So once you receive your conditional offer, you can request for it to appear or to sit on our internal language test, which is online, so you don't have to pay anything for that. So if you're, most of the international students, they take the advantage of that option because they don't have to pay anything for the test at the moment. Yeah. So I hope that answers the question from your perspective. But and I think I can see. Oh yeah, so I think Edinburgh. I think I'll leave to. I think Toby might be able to add something from Edinburgh Law School's point of view as well.
Thank you, Raj.
Thanks, Nancy.
Thanks, Raj. Hi, Nancy. So just to let you know, just obviously from Edinburgh's point of view, then this is be very much dependent on the university that you studied at in Kenya. But for certain. I suppose universities in what we classify as non-majority English-speaking countries, we do accept a degree from specific universities in those countries as meeting our English language requirements, as long as it's from a specific university on our list, and your degree not being any older than 3.5 years old as well. So it'd be very much dependent on the university that you studied at, and I'd be happy to either just address that now or after the session, because obviously it's very specific to you, whatever you would prefer.
Thank you, Toby. I'll be grateful if you could maybe set out your email in the chat box.
Sure.
Thank you.
I can jump in. For us in Turkey, Kenyan students are exempted from English proficiency exam, but we evaluate their language proficiency in our interviews. So if they are not fluent enough, then we can ask them to provide a Toefl score before they register for the program. But for the application, if you're from Kenyan, if you studied in Kenya, and you don't have to submit a Toefl score or IELTS.
Okay, thank you.
At UC Davis, that you can request a waiver. So you can simply write that you study your undergraduate law degree in English medium, and then our admission committee will review that and then approve your waiver, or in your case, I think it will approve, and sometimes it get denial depend on the law school you attended. So, but yeah, you can always request that waiver.
Okay.
Yes, and maybe for Leiden, I totally get your question, Nancy, but unfortunately in Leiden we're pretty strict. We only make exceptions for the very obvious countries like Canada, USA, UK for the language requirements. We ask a Toefl or an IELTS or Cambridge proficiency, and the reason why we do this is just purely because of quality assurance reasons. And I totally agree that sometimes it's very strange if somebody has been working in an English-speaking environment for many years, and that actually happens with our programs, because the advanced programs, they ask work experience from the applicants. But we still ask the language test to make sure that everybody's on at least some basic level before they start the program, because as we all know, law is about language as well. So we think it's very important to make sure that everybody has the right level.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm not certain if there's any other person that's left. Maybe I can move on to my second question, if that's okay. Okay, so
sure, go ahead.
My second question is segmented on experience. So depending on the course that you're interested in. So for instance, I'm interested in data protection, but also on tech and the law. So I understand Edinburgh has a course for LLMs that's specifically geared towards that. And now I've heard that University of Law also has an LLM that's targeted towards that. So my main question would be whether you require to have what sort of experience universities will be looking to for their prospective candidates. Is it a requirement to have had, say, a year or two substantial experience in that specific segment, or does a sufficient to just qualify?
Toby, would you like to go first? Yeah. So.
Sure. So Nancy, yeah. So in terms, I suppose, I'm guessing your main question is kind of the entry requirements for the specific program, and do you need to have any specific knowledge in, say, technology law or some protection law? Or sometimes people get a bit worried as to whether there may be a technical component or kind of, a need to understand, have a degree of understanding of technology and stuff. And I would say you don't need any of those. Closely related, but part of the reason for studying for an LLM is to gain expertise and knowledge in an area of law that you don't have expertise in. If you're coming from a strong law background and you've got good reasons and good motivations for wanting to study this specific program, then I would certainly encourage your application.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thanks.
Maybe I could have a response from Raj.
Actually, I think I echo with what Toby mentioned. Like, again, there's no specific requirement in terms of the work experience that we look at for data protection. So yeah, even a fresh graduate can technically apply and be successful in the course. So yeah, I think the main thing is, just have to articulate your motivation, why you would like to do the course as part of your personal statement. I think that would really help with your application, as well as I think it'll. I think these are the basic questions, anyways. I think you would have thought about it, but I think it'll be good for you to put that in as part of the personal statement. Yeah, but technically, we do not need any work experience. And as Toby mentioned, it's a academic masters. It's all about gaining specialization or knowledge and knowledge in a specific area, so that you can do as a as a fresh graduate.
Okay.
Yeah, something I can add to Nancy's question. At Newcastle, so at Newcastle Law School, actually the majority of our LLM cohort come from non-law backgrounds. And as a result, we don't in fact expect any specific work experience or any kind of experience in law with respect to our degrees. We have now two new degrees, one in emerging technologies, which looks at things like artificial intelligence, data protection, smart contracts, that sort of thing, as well as an international law, any degree in international mediation and various dispute resolutions, resolution solutions. So these are extremely specialized, but at the same time, we offer this specialization without, in fact, expecting our students to have any kind of experience in this. At the same time, they are very research heavy. So we also offer support to our students in order to be able to undertake the kind of research that's required in order to be successful in this kind of degree. So there is a holistic approach we all take to support our students in order so that they can actually undertake this specialization without having any kind of prior experience before this. So thank you.
Thank you, Zoe. So to avoid monopolizing the panelists, I have 3 more questions left, but maybe I was thinking that maybe we could have the other students and prospective students maybe raise their questions before I raise my other 3 questions, if that's fine with you.
Nancy, I think you're making great questions. So
Nancy, I think you could go ahead and shoot all the 3 questions.
I don't see any other raised hands. So
yeah, it will give the panelists also time to think about the responses. So if you want to shoot all the 3 at a time, or 1 at a time.
Thank you. Thank you guys for your consideration. So my 3 questions, actually, the first one just builds off from what Zoe had talked about, and maybe Melissa could help me with this as well, in terms of research quality. So I know it's common for most universities when you're applying for LLMs to have a request of an indication as to your research expertise. So in my case, for instance, I think I'm about 3 years just from university, and I've been working in the course of that, and obviously writing, although not in a professional level, during my 3 years post leaving university. So in terms of research quality, what I know has been the case for students in my country to do is basically take up your dissertation, if you do that in your 4th year of university, and revamp that to a modern standard, and then submit to the prospective university that you're applying to. So I've always been quite confused as to what exactly universities are looking for in terms of proof of research proficiency, because of course a dissertation will help, but your interests will have obviously varied if you have been in if you're in university, say 4 years ago, and now you're 3 years post university. So your research interests are definitely different. So maybe guidance on that. Is it just what suffices? Is it an article, say, of say 12 pages? Is it just a normal alert that I've written in the course of my employment? What exactly would suffice for a person who's trying to apply into a specific program?
Can I respond to this?
Yeah.
Oral LLM degrees require a dissertation. The dissertation cannot be something that has been submitted before. However, it is a way for you to specialize in something that interests you specifically. And it's also something that you can add onto your CV for prospective employers to see that, yes, I have, for instance, specialized in artificial intelligence, but I have also been researching specific issues about smart contracts, about NFTs, or various issues of money laundering that might arise in those contexts, right? These are the sort of things that you would necessarily be looking into any detail as part of a module that you have chosen, but you can, through a 12,000 word dissertation, for instance, you can pour into this subject and show what kind of expert you can be on this, right? Now, there are many ways you can research. You can undertake what we call analytical research or doctrinal research, where you basically sit in a library, you read through books, and you understand the kind of debate that goes on a specific legal issue, and then you just develop an argument of your own and explain how you fit into all of this debate. Or you can take an empirical type of research, like go out and take interviews, etc., and take all this data, compose it into something that provides a conclusion into your research question. The thing is that we have modules that will help you basically do all of this, because nobody expects anybody, especially in an LLM course where we accept individuals from various backgrounds to have done research in the past and to have done research into that sort of level. So we do provide the kind of support you need in order to be able to navigate all of this. And generally we have no problems. You might, for instance, find that you like this kind of thing and go on to do a PhD later on. I hope this helps.
Yeah, my question was a bit specific, but thank you, because I've actually done another question from this. I'm sorry. My question was specifically tied to the application process, because what I found from my experience is that sometimes a university will require you to provide a written sample of work that you've done in the past. I think this is the case for Codge. So my question was just tied to just how much does this written sample have to tie in with your current research interest? So if I give an example, for my fourth year dissertation, what I wrote on was the application of international law in Kenya, with a specific focus to the right of freedom of expression. So that was my writing research then for the purposes of qualifying for my LLB degree. In the event that I want to pursue a master's, say, in data protection or artificial intelligence, and the specific university, say, requires a written statement, is it the case that I will be required to then churn out a new article that is specific to that? So, for instance, what I know the practice has been is to just sort of edit your dissertation just to show proof, because this is something that you've qualified in. Or will it be the case that I will have to write a new article and then submit it to the university? I hope that clarifies it.
Yes, Can I respond to this on the, from the Newcastle's perspective?
Yes, thank you.
We don't have any such requirements when it comes to the total LLM course, because as I say, there is a lot of support for you to develop your own research in the framework you're given. The only way you would be required to submit something along those lines would be a research proposal, should you want to do a research degree, maybe an LLM by research or a PhD. And that's something that you will have to, you might want to actually contact academics from the department you're interested in, ask the kind of research interests that they have and what they would be interested in supervising, and go on from there. I mean, I would very much encourage you to have somebody read through your work and a research proposal to see that you actually have a research question for a research degree to be based on that. But when it comes to an LLM taught, it's not something that we require at all. Thank you.
Thank you, Zoe. Maybe I could hear from Melissa, Toby, and Raj.
I think this will be a joint answer between me and Esra. From a purely technical information perspective, if you're applying to our LLM that it's taught or non-thesis, you do not have to provide any type of writing sample or previous research samples, okay? If you're applying to our LLM with thesis, because at the end you will have to write a master's thesis or dissertation, then of course, optionally, if you have something that you think showcases your research and writing skills in a great way, regardless of the topic you're interested in now. You know, you wrote this 4 years ago, but you think you did a very good job, and it was, for example, you earned a distinction, or you got top grades in your dissertation course, then of course you should put everything that highlights your strengths. And if one of those strengths is writing and having done some type of research before, then you can include it, but it's optional. But as in the case of Newcastle, if you're applying to our PhD programs, then yes, then you are asked to provide a research proposal. Now, in terms of the content and how it aligns with the department's research topics, I would ask my colleague Esra to maybe go a bit deeper into that.
So the students we appoint supervisor professors to students in their first year of LLM in line with their research interests. So if you have a specific interest in mind and you would like to do your research in your second year of LLM, and if you want to write your thesis on that topic, a professor in that field will help you along the way. But you can also change your topic anytime. So most of the students, they start a program with a topic in their mind, but during the first year, they change the topic. They sometimes change the advisor. So it is flexible in the first years, and you can always change that. But we are not expecting you to have a research, qualifications before starting an LLM.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Before I have a go, Nancy, I just wondered if Barry has any thoughts from University of East London perspective. Hi, Barry.
Hi, good afternoon.
Hi, how are you?
Good. In relation to what in particular?
Yeah, so in terms of, Nancy's question was about would you need any, if Nancy has to apply for one of your LLMs, does she have to submit anything apart from the personal statements, like her previous dissertation research papers or articles?
No, not at all. Ours is a taught program. So all that matters is her personal statement and her existing grades. And can I just pick up an earlier question as well?
Of course, please do.
Concerning whether someone had to have a law background. For our LLM, it is not necessary to have a law background. We take students from any discipline you can think of, really. What we do is we have legal skills classes built into the sessions, built into the program. So we will take people from non-law backgrounds as well. So yeah, the answer is that we don't require samples of previous writing, but we do want a good personal statement.
Just a quick follow-up question on the non-law graduates, Barry. Do they have to do any pre-course requisites before the
No,
LLM?
not at all. Not at all. I mean, again, we will look at the personal statement. So they've got to give a good kind of account of themselves, but we will take people from any disciplinary background. They don't have to be lawyers. In fact, we've had people on the course in the past from every background you can think of. We've had engineers, we've had, last year we had a pianist from Canada who did very well, actually. And so we've had non-lawyers on the course, and actually I think it adds to the course quite a lot.
I can see
Can
that.
I ask what the pianists did in their career with a degree in music and an LLM?
You know, I don't know. I know he went back to Canada.
Entertainment law? I don't know.
If you look at intellectual property rights and streaming businesses, he could become a niche kind of consultant for an artist.
No, he
I
wanted
was
to
just curious, but that
specialize
sounds awesome.
He specialized in international human rights law. I think he wanted to make a complete change of career.
Okay.
Maybe he was sick of the piano.
Basinachi, sorry, Barry is from University of East London, just so you know. Yes, I saw your question there. So Barry is from University of East London. Yeah, so just going back to the question, Nancy, it's exactly the same with University of Law as well. We do not need any articles or any further documentation. Personal statement is critical. That's where you write your motivation sort of statement. The only time when you might have to add those sort of extra information is if you do not meet the academic criteria, and if you want the application to be considered on a non-standard route, so which is like based on your work experience or your previous research work that you've done. So that's when I think that will come in handy. I hope that answers your question. Yeah.
Yes, it does.
Very welcome.
So just 2 or 3 last questions. My third question now takes us switch to funding and scholarships, mainly on the volunteer experience segment, and also I think it also just ties in to your application, the making of your application. So I have been to various forums, and there's always been an indication that volunteer experience is key. So my main question is, does your volunteer experience really have to also tie into what you're doing currently, or does it need to just generally demonstrate that you have been able to work with the community and bring about change in a community? This question is open to any of the panelists.
I was just wondering if Joanne had any thoughts on this, Joanne, from
Sorry, Raj.
No worries, that's okay. Yeah, I just caught you off guard.
Okay. I'm sorry, Nancy, could you repeat the question, please?
No worries. My main question was segmented on volunteer experience, especially when you're applying for funding applications. I'm aware that in most cases, universities will require you to have demonstrated that you have been in a position where you have contributed or given back to the community, especially if you're getting either a merit or other scholarships. So for example, say Chevening, MasterCard, etc. So I just wanted to get a clarification from an admissions perspective as to what type of volunteer experience normally counts. So I'm aware that this really isn't tied to a specific sort of scholarship, but with specific reference to say what is funded by the university. So for instance, if the university has its own merit programs, in terms of volunteer experience, would you be required to give volunteer experience that is tied into your program, or do you need general volunteer experience?
I think it in answer to your second question about the specific volunteer experience, it depends on the scholarship that you're applying for at the Allard School of Law at UBC. We have funding that we make available to our LLM students. There's no application process for that. If you're admitted to the program, you're automatically given that funding. But there are external funding sources. where volunteer experience is key, right? So because it may be tied to leadership potential. So it really depends on the funding that's available, and you should check with, again, I think that's been reiterated a number of times, and it's a common theme throughout this fair, that you need to check with the program that you're applying to and ask that question. You know, what funding sources are available? How do I apply for those? How do I qualify for those? In terms of if you're thinking of, and it may be early days for you, but just to put a plug in for PhD programs, if you're thinking of going on to further academic studies, being awarded scholarships are key, particularly if you're going to become an academic at some point. You have to get used to applying for scholarships. So if volunteering has been something that you have been doing throughout your undergrad, it's just something that you do, I would keep that up and don't worry too much about the type of volunteering experience. Just get a volunteering under your belt, because obviously if you're volunteering, it's something that you love to do. You love giving back to your community, whatever that experience is. Does that help?
Yes, definitely. Thank you.
Welcome.
Maybe I could hear from an EU perspective, so Turkey and Leiden.
Yeah, our general advice that we give to our international applicants, there's no detailed guidelines about what types of volunteering or extracurricular activities would give you extra points or an advantage over other candidates. What's important is how do you explain or how do you connect the dots for the admissions committee of how that specific experience has made you better prepared to undertake the courses and the learning that you will receive in an LLM program. So for example, if you have extracurricular or volunteering or internship activities that have helped advance your teamwork skills, or your, for example, digital communication or in-person communication skills, your negotiation skills, mediation skills, or a better or more in-depth understanding of specific legal issues because you have faced them in a volunteering activity in a specific community. It's just about highlighting those in that personal statement. Besides, of course, you can write the activities you have done, the volunteering, but it's about how do you translate the activity into specific skills or knowledge that would be a valuable addition to a class of LLM students, considering that they will be coming, in our case, they would all be lawyers because that's our admission requirement, but even though they're all lawyers, they will have different experiences. So how does that volunteering experiences you may have had would bring value to the class? Okay.
Thank you.
Nancy, I think you also asked for the Leiden perspective, but I think I have nothing more to add to what Melissa already said, because that basically applies to our to Leiden Law School as well. I think applying for an LLM is like applying for a job. You have to find out whether your skills and your activities and volunteering work, whether they relate to, well, in this case, the program you're applying to. And if you can explain that, that will be a good start.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. This has really been insightful for me. Definitely learning a lot and picking up a lot. So I think the last question just builds up from what Zoe had mentioned in terms of research. And I just would like to get maybe perspective from Zoe, Toby as well, and Melissa on the research segments. In terms of funding for research purposes, when and if, say, for instance, I apply and I get accepted into your schools. So in terms of research, do I have to come up with my own funding? Are there funding opportunities for the type of research projects you want to take on, especially if and in the event that they take a funding intensive approach? Is that something that the university will sponsor? Is it something that the university may not exactly sponsor, but have a way for, say, a student who's keenly interested in, say, a specific area to to have an outreach with existing say firms or organizations working within that space for the purposes of getting funding to advance the specific research project. I know from a legal perspective, most research may not require funding intensive support, but it's just something I just wanted to find out from the universities. So if and when your research project, say for your thesis or dissertation, takes such a time, is that something that the university normally does, or it's just on a case-by-case basis?
Okay, from Newcastle's perspective, generally there are a few funding streams that run on an ad hoc basis. There are a few that are regular, but they are incredibly competitive, and they whether you'd be able to be fully funded through them would depend on the support you get from your research supervisor, for instance, the quality of your research proposal, and your overall academic background. For instance, we've got a funding stream with various northern universities, which funds social science based research, and in order to and the funding will include both an LLM, which will train you basically in various research methods, and then full funding for the rest of your research through a PhD for the next 3 years. But again, this is something that you will have to specifically apply for, and I'm very happy to discuss with you if you would be interested in it. But generally, when it comes to research, you will have to go onto our website, look at what kind of scholarships are available, and there are various ad hoc research streams, funding streams that come in throughout the year that could come from other universities, from various grants that the university has gone into with other universities, or they could come from the private sector. Does this make sense?
Yes, it does. Zoe, I would like to just request that you drop your email in the chat box.
Yes, yes, of course.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
I'll ask my colleague Estra to, I'm so sorry, to
answer. You can talk about Turkish scholarships maybe.
Yeah.
Because that's the only scholarship scheme we can offer them, international students, because our LLM students, they have tuition waivers on their academic merit after we evaluate them through interviews and written exams, but we do not provide extra scholarships or funds for their research. If a professor has a research research funding, if she or he is working on international projects, and they can create their own teams, and our professors then recruit LLM or PhD students for their research, and then you get funded, but it could be European Commission funding, it could be global, national funding through our national science committee. It could be even university research funding, but it could be, you can only get that through your supervisor. We cannot grant you in advance. But there's one specific national scholarship that Melissa is very involved in, Turkish scholarships, which is very important. So Melissa, you can talk about this maybe.
Yeah, what I can do is I'll also type my email address in the chat, so you can send me an email. Because it's quite detailed, and there's specific application deadlines and everything for that. And yes, they do have some short-term scholarships which are meant to help not with research costs, but more with stipends. So they may help cover some research costs about, for example, conducting interviews, travel, refreshments for participants if you're doing focus groups and that kind of activity. So I'll write my email address on the chat as well.
Thank you so much.
Before we end the session, I just wondered, like, Toby wanted to say something. Toby, did you have anything to add to this?
Yes, there. I was just yeah, it was. I think it's probably been covered by Melissa. To clarify whether you were, Nancy, whether you were talking about the I suppose the dissertation, the research component of your LLM, as opposed to funding for a PhD for, say, after you do after you study your LLM. I just wondering if you could clarify what you meant in your question.
I think my focus right now would be on an LLM, just in case the LLM has sort of an funding and funding component to the research done. But I'll be happy to also hear about your PhD funding as well.
Sure. So yeah, I mean, like I think as Zoe and Melissa said, we don't really offer. You don't really get any funding per se for the research component of your LLM.
Yeah.
It's included in your tuition fees. You're paying for your obviously the courses and the dissertation component. Obviously, if travel is involved, and sometimes there may be law school that you're applying to may have that you can apply to for, say, maybe travel funds or anything like that. But as for specific funding for research for your dissertation component of your LLM, that's something that would not happen. In terms of I suppose after you complete your LLM, if you're interested in a PhD, then yeah, I mean, every law school will have their own kind of funding opportunities, but there will also be external funding opportunities from whether it's national research councils, the European Commission, anything like that. So it's just, I think, one of those things of checking each and every one of the law school's websites for funding opportunities. Ourselves, we generally ask people to come up with their own research proposals, but we do offer some kind of fixed kind of research projects that you can apply to, which are obviously funded as well. Some law schools, it's mainly fixed kind of projects that you will be applying to.
I'm sorry, Toby, I think I lost you for the last bit.
Okay, I'm trying to remember what my last bit was. What I would say is I think just for PhD funding, definitely just check law school websites and for the various funding opportunities, because it will vary from law school to law school, and obviously there'll be external funding opportunities available as well.
Toby, maybe I can follow up with just one more question on that segment. So I noticed that the University of Edinburgh, I'm so sorry if I'm butchering that pronunciation. I noticed that they do have a couple of research centers, especially with regards to technology. So what would be the average LLM students' participation in such research centers and such research activities? Because I note from what I've heard from College is that if and when a professor has a research funding opportunity, they may pick an LLM student to work with them on that research program. Is that the case for your university?
Yes, yeah. So research assistantships can come up on an ad hoc basis during your LLM studies, and that will just depend on the academic and the projects that are ongoing. So it may not happen to be that, say, with Edinburgh Law School, and your pronunciation was perfect. We have the Script Centre, which is our kind of intellectual property and technology kind of research centre.
Yeah.
So it could be the case that a research assistantship kind of comes up during your time with us if you choose to study with us. But there's also opportunities, say, within certain research centres, and I'm sure it would be the same with other law schools present today as well, that you may have the opportunity to contribute to research. So we have the Script Centre, the Technology Centre, has ScriptEd, which is a journal that it produces, and our LLM students can submit paper proposals to be included in that, and that would obviously go to an editorial board to be approved. So there are other opportunities. Even if research assistantships don't come up, to actually show your research skills in other ways, and that could be through, I suppose, research centres, journals, but also kind of other peer-reviewed journals that the law school that you'd be studying with produce as well.
Then my last question, I think, just goes to everyone. Given the prevailing COVID-19 situation, I understand that different approaches in different countries. What has been the approach of the universities generally with regards to LLM students? For instance, if they offer a better school, has there been an implication as to, say, things such as housing and maybe research? Just generally would be good to hear from the universities and the panelists in general, where and how they have managed to handle things such as taught programs, whether we are going to be having face-to-face lessons, whether this is the programs are generally conducted on a virtual platform. It would be good to hear about that, given that generally getting visa accommodations from my country may be a bit difficult, but it would just be good to hear the COVID-19 approach from most universities in terms of admissions.
Hi, Nancy. If it's okay, I'll pick it up because we've covered the first part of the presentation was we've covered this topic at length, and I think you might have missed that presentation. But just to sum it up, I think we are obviously we are coming out of COVID-19 as we know it is, or it was at least. So obviously things are even before this. Pretty much most of us, we are back to face-to-face teaching. There is still a hybrid model that is still operational, I think, in a good way, because if it's a large seminar, and then because we understand that things can be done, few things can be done virtually as well. So wherever there is an opportunity to do something online, I think that is online engagement is become more critical and part of the program delivery in all the universities. But for going back, I think it's all back to normal pretty much in the UK, and it sounded like things are back to normal in the US as well, apart from small restrictions. So it's also changing so fast. So it's always good to check the website of the government websites for the latest up-to-date information on the travel restrictions itself. But at the moment, there are no, as we all know, travel is coming back to normal. So especially if you're looking for this September, it should be, there should not be any problem with that. And I just saw David has just joined, and he asked, David, we were just wrapping up the session. Unfortunately, you just joined, towards the end, and you asked for the links for the websites for law schools in the USA, and I have put the link to our Global Consortium website. On our website, there is a lot of information about all the law schools that are participating today. So if you go to the participating schools section, you will be able to, from there, you can navigate to different law schools website as well. So with that, I can see Nera has got her hand up. Nera, have you got any quick question that we haven't covered so far before we wrap it up? And I think that would be, the last question, if I'm afraid, if that's okay.
Thank you, Raj. My question is quick. I tried to get information on your website as it relates to scholarships for international students. I don't know if you could just shed more light on that, just quickly.
Sure. So what I'll do is I'm just putting if it's specific to your law, and again, I would say there's a lot of information on every school's website. But if you can just quickly drop me an email, I'll send all the information to you. I'll put the link. I'll send across the link to you for the international courses that we offer.
Thank you.
Perfect. Right. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you very much for your time, and for the participants. Thank you very much for joining us from from different countries. It was fascinating to chat with you, understand your profiles, and we look forward to interacting with you via emails or via even better through applications. So yes, I mean that as we all said, just like earlier, you apply, the better it is, and this is the right time for. And sounds like this is almost you're at the peak time for the US applications for sure, and even for the UK and EU, rest of the world as well. This is the right time for you to submit the applications. So if you have any questions, I mean, we will be planning a series of events this year. So please keep an eye on, a close eye on our Global Law Consortium website. We will be updating the website with the next events as well. So which will be happening. So that you will have more opportunities to interact with us on a one-to-one basis, as well as hear some more valuable insights from our speakers. So with that, and thank you very much for the presenters, and it's great to have the session again. So I'm hoping we'll do more and more series of events like this. Yeah. So with that, I know you were, for some of you it is 5 o'clock in the morning, or it started at 5 o'clock in the morning. So you might have already tired. So I'll let you go. Again, a big thank you, everyone. A big thank you, and look forward to speaking with you very soon.
Thank you.
Thank you, Raj.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye. Bye-bye, everyone. Take care. Bye.